Hello everyone, this is Martin Bowie. Today we're going to talk about the advanced skills, final classes, and mixed passives. So, you might be a level 30 player where you'll make your first reset potion, or you might be a level 70 player looking to make use of their last one in order to see what class fits them best. Just like in the video before, we will discuss all the skills from the rest of the skill tree, along with some recommendations. If you have any other questions, you can comment down below or join the game's official Discord. Advanced skills are the ones you notice around here, just above the circle, but behind a third passive. They are most often situational and are best for different uses and not mindless spamming. You will see what I mean soon. First skill we'll discuss is cicatrization. Well, this one is weird. It deals light fire damage and heals you. It also inflicts a level 1 magic defense debuff. The issue with this skill is the healing. It is based on your heal stat rather than maximum health or lifesteal, unlike Revitalizing Blow. This is best to use a killing blow on the enemy if you don't wish to use Mystical Strike. It's decent, but you shouldn't use it often. Next skill is Stunning Blow. This one is okay to say the least. It deals a nice, medium air damage and plays the enemy for only one turn. It also inflicts a level 2 evasion debuff. It's fine, and it's a nice counter to a certain class we're going to discuss later in the video. Next up, we have Vibrating Shield. Probably the most underrated skill in the game. It deals a nice light earth damage while granting you a level 2 magic defense debuff. It does, however, inflict a level 2 critical power debuff on the enemy. Remember how I talked about buffs and debuffs? Obviously, crit power is much stronger than the rest, and so it's scaled down. A level 2 debuff will pretty much destroy any existent crit build for a few turns. Use this whenever you got a chance. It's very strong. Now we have Warrior's third passive. It's a nice damage and physical defense increase, which complements your stats gained from the skill tree. Now, we finally got to check the two final classes of Warrior. What are final classes? It's simple. They're specialized in a certain area of the game. The final class above is Warden. It's a class which is considered a true bruiser. It has good utility and nice sustain, while being able to dish out some nice damage to its final passive. Let's discuss the skills. Provoking Gaze is a light air damage skill which grants prominence. What is prominence, you may ask? It's a buff which allows you to protect your allies. While its uses in solo runs, it's very useful in multiplayer games and player versus player runs. Prominence redirects a part of the damage an ally has taken to you instead, basically splitting the damage and hitting you both. It's a great buff if used correctly, and will turn the tides of a battle at the right time. It also inflicts 2 level 1 debuffs, physical and magical defenses. In conclusion, strong skill. You can use it even when you're solo for dealing more damage to an enemy. Next up, we have Regenerating Shield. It deals medium earth and fire damage and restores your health. Earth and fire damage? How does that work though? It works like this. The skill is split in 2 or more depending on how many elements are present. The first half deals earth damage, while the other deals fire damage. The multipliers for each element are taken into play, along with the enemy's resistances to certain elements and defenses. It won't deal 2 instances of damage. It deals just a half of the skill as earth damage, while the other half deals fire damage. Do not be disappointed, however. Skills like this allow you to make some nice builds. Back to the explanation. The restored health is based on your maximum HP. Very nice skill, it's always usable no matter what. Best thing about this though, is you can spam it to trigger elemental bursts. How does it work? Well, at first it deals earth damage, so you can burst from fire, and then once the skill is finally used, it leaves a fire blight. Now, imagine you could spam this 3 times. Really fun, right? That's the difference between a mono-element skill like Wolf's Blow for example, and multi-elements. They allow you to either skip a certain element or straight away let you spam it to make up for the possible damage you lost. And finally, the final passive. Over 50% of your max HP, you grant a level 1 attack buff. Over 75% though, you get the level 2 attack buff. See what I mean by the regenerating shield and this passive? They work incredibly well together, not to mention recharge blow and protection. It changes the way you will play the game and how to gear up. Gearing will be discussed in another video by the way. In conclusion, it's a decent class which is very good at killing solo runs. In multiplayer runs though, it's a bit strange, but it does its job okay, I can say. Moving on to next final class, we have Berserker. I forgot to mention that each final class grants a different amount of stats, so please pay attention when looking at them. Berserkers are your average high damage dealer with beefy defenses. They're able to take a blow and become even stronger when they are lower health. If Warden wants to keep the health up, Berserker wants to keep it around the half, to surprise everything coming in the way. Starting with Theory. It deals medium earth damage and grants you a level 2 attack buff, though it makes you bleed. It's a great skill actually, don't be fooled by the bleed. You'll see in a bit. Boiling Blood. It deals huge fire damage, but inflicts you with a level 2 defense debuff and a level 1 magic defense debuff. This is the first skill which deals huge damage for now. Even though the drawback might seem very severe, you should look at the skill more closely. It's a Moon of Fire skill which deals huge damage, so it can do much more than a fireball at times. You will see what I mean when I'll make a video about Berserkers and their builds. And their final passive, Last Stand. At 50% of lower HP, you will get a level 1 attack buff and your pure physical skills grant you a temporary shield. So you can just activate and you will get a counter shield without losing the damage. That's pretty cool. But wait until I tell you this. It works with counter too. So you can counter with a recharge blow to get 2 counter shields and health back. This final passive allows you to turn the tides of the battle per yourself and do 1v2s in multiplayer runs or even PvP if you're good enough. Solid passive, you will love playing around this one. I know there's another class to be discussed of here, but we'll talk about it later. It's a mixed class, you get the idea soon. Let's talk Rogue's advanced skills. Firstly, we have Piercing Arrow. It deals medium water damage and inflicts a level 1 defense debuff. It also grants you a level 1 attack buff if you crit. Really nice to use, you can set up elemental burst with it. Next up, Grappling Hook. This one deals light air damage and inflicts a level 1 physical and magical damage debuff. Really nice against high damage enemies, don't hesitate to use it. And then we have Poison Blow. It deals light fire damage and poisons the enemy. It inflicts a level 1 magic debuff as well, so it's good in multiplayer runs. So if you have to fight a tank, use a sneak attack with Poison Blow and then slash away. Really nice kill, it's situational though. And finally, Rogue's Start passive, which increases your attack and agility. Pretty fitting. Now that we've reached Rogue's final classes, let's start with the rod one, which is Assassin. This one relies heavily on crits to do his job, and it shows that with the next skill. Sneaky Trap. It deals tiny water damage. On crit though, it deals huge water damage. This is the second huge damage skill we have noticed. It's got a severe condition, but it's a very strong skill to use with elemental bursts. Next up, Smoke Bomb. It deals medium fire and air damage. It will also grant you and your allies a level 1 evasion. Very nice skill, it will prove to be useful at times. And now, the final passive. Critting grants you a level 1 crit chance buff. This means whatever skill you use and it crits, you will get that buff. But if the target is an enemy, they will get a level 1 defense debuff. In conclusion, really good final passive which further enhances your playstyle. This is especially good if you manage to get enough attack running with crits and critical power. It will allow you to keep rolling through the content. Let's move on to the black sheep of the DPS classes, which is Ranger. It's very good, regardless of people's public opinion about it. Its first skill, Hunter's Mark, deals damage based on a percentage of the enemy's HP and grants you a level 1 fire and air power. It's a weird skill, but I can consider it decent. Actually, more than decent. It allows you to deal more damage with any air, fire, or both skills, letting you do some really good numbers. Combine this with Scorching Dagger or Leech Arrow for really good effects. Explosive Arrow. It deals heavy fire and air damage. It also inflicts the enemy with a level 2 evasion debuff. It's actually a good skill, use it if you'd like. And now, the final passive. Well, consecutive hits on the same target deal additional damage. Now, for my testings, it increases your damage just once and it stays like that. It is actually noticeable, but it does not work the way you maybe had thought. It's pretty good nonetheless. Now that we're finished with Rogue, let's move on to Mage. Winds of Change is a light air damage skill, which grants you level 2 magic defense buff and level 1 evasion buff. It's a decent skill, it's pretty much situational though. Boulder Slam. It deals medium earth damage and inflicts the enemy with a level 2 evasion debuff. Also situational, but it's very good against certain enemies. Next up, Meteorite. It deals medium earth and fire damage and inflicts the enemy with a level 1 defense debuff. It's actually a good skill, not going to lie. You can spam it and it has a tons of charges. You should definitely use this one when in doubt. And the third passive works just like Warriors. It's simple enough. Let's start with the top class this time. This one is called Druid. Basically, it's the ambulance of dungeon masters. It's got amazing sustain and great heals. It can also become very tanky. Let's start the first skill, Revitalizing Roots. It heals a heavy amount of health to yourself or an ally. It's really good. Scale it up with crits and it'll be very strong. Next up, Healing Waters. It deals a tiny amount of damage, but it heals you for a medium amount of health. Same story as with Healing Light and Revitalizing Roots. It scales really well with crits and heals. Finally, Druid's final passive. Your pure healing skills give health regen to their target. So, if you use Revitalizing Roots on someone, they will get the regen, but if you use Healing Waters, you won't get it. It's because it has to only heal someone and not damage in return. It's a very good final passive which is meant to save people from bleeds and poisons or just get their health up. Next up is my favorite class in the game, Necromancer. The first skill is Elemental Rift. It deals huge air, earth, water and fire damage. Simple enough, it works just like any other multi-element skill. The only issue with this, however, is it won't deal crazy amounts of damage to monsters in PvE, since they will have a good amount of resistances, but it will blow up basically any squishy in PvP. It's blink it or then miss it here. Next skill, Evil Touch. This one is very good. It deals medium fire and water damage, so you can spam it, grants you a level 1 magic buff, and a level 1 crit power buff, but it also inflicts with a level 1 healing debuff. You will ask me now, why the debuff? Well, it's because the amount of crit power you could stack Necro with and then heal from certain skills could get you over 400 health, while also damaging the enemy. Sometimes I managed to heal myself for 500 health before the nerf. It was extremely broken, so it was fixed, but it doesn't matter, trust me. And now, the final passive. Your pure magic skills steal the enemy's life. So, you have a lifesteal mechanic anytime you use a magic skill. It's actually very good. It heals you for 15% damage dealt. I have a lot of ways to go with this. Also, really good final passive, just like the others. Though, you won't heal yourself from other skills which do physical damage or both, so keep that in mind. And that was it about pure classes. But it's not over just yet. Now we're going to talk about mixed passives, in theory, since I don't have resets available unfortunately. Most of you who are watching this either have experience with this, or you don't. There's no in between obviously. Let's explain it. You gain an attack and magic bonus according to the gap between your attack and magic values. The smaller it is, the better. You need 15 points in both Rogue and Mage, and can only have one mixed passive active. The other mixed passive works the same, except it's for mages and warriors. Now that I read this out loud, I'll have to explain a few things. The way you have to balance this is like a scale. You have to be careful when adding the stats, because you may break something there. Of course, it's always fixable with a reset potion, but we're talking about keeping it if you want to use it. In order to do it right, you'll have to go to your character tab and click on the plus sign in the top right. See those white and yellow numbers? The white numbers represent the stats you get from the skill tree and affinity chamber, while the orange ones are from equipment. Basically, all you have to do is make sure the attack and magic stat have around the same value. So, it's not a big issue if your attack and magic are 2 or 5 points away from each other, but when it's higher than that, you will lose a part of the bonus. My advice is, please, I actually beg you, don't get a mixed passive early on, unless you are a sadistic or want to be different from the rest. You will spend so much time balancing out those stats that you might want to pull your hair at times. So, if you're a person who takes their sanity seriously, keep the mixed passive for when you reach level 70 and can use the reset potion from there. Thank you. Now that my begging for mercy is now done, let's move on to the green skill tree. You might ask yourself how to reach this one, or the purple one, or the orange one. Well, you simply have to put 50 points into one of the classes. The base classes to be more exact. So, if you have 15 warrior, you'll have access to the green and orange skill tree. If you have 15 rogue, you'll have access to the purple and orange tree. If you have 15 mage, you'll have access to the purple and green tree. You got it. They're actually a pretty small skill tree. They're called a mixed class. It's the combination, or sort of, which allows you to specialize into different kinds of characters. This one is a tank, for example. Its name? No, it's not Panzer IV, it's Guardian. It has way different stat gains than the rest, indicating it benefits from both attack, magic, defense, and magic defense, and it also grants you a ton of health. Let's discuss Windshield. It's a medium magical air damage skill, which grants you a level 1 defense and magic defense buff. Pretty straightforward, it's usable by anyone due to the utility. Next up, we have Life Surge. It restores the health of an ally drawing from yours. The amount restored is based solely on the health drawn, so it will draw a percentage of your health, but that percentage will have a multiplier to it for the ally who's getting the health. If you crit, you will heal that guy for even more, but you will lose the same amount of health. Really nice utility skill, great for any tank based build. Next, we have Unsettling Stare. It deals light physical water damage and gain prominence. Notice how I mentioned the types of damage just now? It matters, since most of you may wonder why you deal lesser damage with one skill, but more with the rest. It also inflicts all the enemies with a level 1 attack and magic debuff. All of them. Not just one. And the first passive of Guardian gives you defense and magical defenses. Next up, we have Eyes on Me. It deals medium physical and magical earth damage and gain prominence. It also increases other elemental resistances with a level 1 buff for each one of them, if I recall correctly. So, this is basically a reliable, don't worry, I've got this skill, you can cast to redirect damage from your friends to yourself. It's a great skill which Guardians should use when they get the chance. Skill is Immunity. It's going to realize a level 3 physical and magical defense buff along with level 2 elemental resistances buffs. This is incredible. This is so useful for any kind of content. If you want to survive or basically help your teammates use a buff or proc something in between so they do not die, use this. It's amazing, no matter what. Every single squishy will thank you for your service. And the final passive. Deflecting your skill damages the attacker and your prominence is more effective. Basically, the damage is based on your total HP rather than attack or magic stats. The prominence being more effective means more damage is being redirected to you than normal. Your chances to deflect though increase when you don't have prominence. This is extremely good for tanks since it allows them to clear higher floors at a reasonable amount of time. In conclusion, really good support class. Next mixed class, which has a mixed passive, is Bard. This is a fan favorite, and many people pick Bard because of its final passive. This class is a true jack of all trades, as mentioned in the description. Here, we can see it going to much more attack, magic, agility, and heal stats. Now, Ballora of Fire deals heavy physical and magical fire damage and inflicts a level 2 heal debuff on the enemy. The damage part is split in half like other multi-element skills. Really good skill to take down enemy healers with it. Next up, Minuet of Forest. It deals light physical earth damage and inflicts a level 2 attack debuff on the enemy. This one is a lifesaver against high damage enemies which deal physical damage. Use it when you get the chance. Song of Storm deals light magical air damage and heals you a light amount of HP. It also inflicts a level 1 magic debuff on the enemy, also a great skill. It is amazing not just for Bard. The first passive is basic, it helps you get more damage. Next up, the final skills. Requiem of Spirit heals a light amount of health to all allies and grants you level 1 physical and magical defense. Really cool skill actually, though it's a bit awkward to use in certain situations. It actually depends on your build really, which we'll discuss in a future video by the way. Lullaby inflicts the enemies with a level 2 defense and magic defense debuff, with a level 1 evasion debuff. This is an amazing opener for both solo and multiplayer runs, so use it when you feel like it. Here comes the cherry on top though. Bard's final passive. The opposite effect of your debuff skills is given to you as a buff. You may ask yourself, how is this allowed? Yes, this grants you the full effect of the debuff as a buff. Look at Minuet of Forest now. It will grant you a level 2 attack buff just for using it. Lullaby as well. Will grant you those debuffs as buffs to you. How crazy is that actually? Is there a catch? Yes, there is actually one catch. Bleeds and poisons don't work with it. That's it. Just those two don't work since they're status effects, but the rest of them are easily achievable. Look around the skill tree and you will see a lot of potential. And finally, the last mixed class, which doesn't use a mixed passive, is Monk. This is the Bruce Lee of Dungeon Masters, a very fun to play class if you put in the time and effort to play, just like any other class. Here we see a multitude of stats, which grant you all kinds of stuff. All of them are useful actually, so let's just jump right in. First skill of Monk is Rooster Crow. It deals medium air and fire damage and grants you and your allies a level 1 evasion buff. Really good damage skill which also supports your team. Next one is Dragon Punch. It deals medium, fire and air damage. Yes, the order is different from Rooster Crow. It inflicts the enemy with a level 3 crit chance debuff. That's really strong. You can basically cripple a crit class like this. Combine it with Vibrating Shield, it will make any crit class cry against you. Next one is Horse Stance. It deals light earth damage and you gain prominence. You also gain a level 1 attack buff. So it's interesting actually. You get a nice buff, but you can also be at risk of using it in a multiplayer run. In a solo run, you can always use it as a buff skill which also damages the enemy. Use it wisely. Its first passive grants you 50 evasion. That's pretty generous of them actually. You don't find this anywhere. Next one is Ox Awareness. It grants you a level 1 evasion buff and regen. If you crit, it will grant you a much longer regen. Simple enough, a good sustain skill. Next one is Monkey Cloud. It deals heavy water damage and grants you a level 3 evasion. That's really strong, but it's not as strong as what is coming. Probably the final passive, which is the most fluid of them all. Being hit grants you a level 2 evasion buff. When you or an ally evade an attack, you gain a level 2 attack buff. This is crazy. Basically, you become one of the dodges. Now, imagine stacking the level 1, 2 and 3 evasions with the evasion stats you gain from Monk and Dexterity. It's amazing and it would be a really fun passive to play with. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'm sorry if it was too long. Hopefully I made it easier with the chapters. See you in the next one where we will talk about gear, pyramid dungeons, food, crafting and the memory game. Have fun in the dungeons!